Alright, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to Vortix versus Kelazhur, two players with StarCraft backgrounds, Kelazhur a member of Team Liquid, whereas Vortix is the brother of Lucifron, two players that are considered to be candidates to qualify for the $20,000 EGC Genesis Age of Empires 4 tournament. We are looking at recorded games today. These games were played previously during the day. During the qualifiers, I casted some sets on the EGC main channel, and now the sets I haven't casted, or at least the ones that I deem interesting, I will cast for my own channel over here. So let's start off with the first game over here. We will have a French mirror, Vortix versus Kelazhur over here on Dry Arabia. French seems to be just the most popular civilization picks throughout the tournament. It's a combination of a lot of factors, I believe, as we have Vortix on the right side in blue French, and also French is Kelazhur on the left side in red. So I feel like the frequent picking of French is a combination of a lot of things in Age of Empires 4. First off, French is an extremely powerful civilization. They have access to the early knights, they have a very powerful economy, very strong late game as well with their heavy cavalry, but it's also the fact that this civilization is quite easy to learn. So it's one thing that's powerful, it's another thing that it's easy to learn. So it's basically an ideal choice for players who didn't have a lot of time to prepare for a tournament and learn all the civilizations. You can go for this civ as something that's powerful yet easy to learn. So, looking at the base of the players real quick, we will have Kelazhur's gods being both very exposed over here as he gets housed for a brief moment. His berries are not amazing either, and he's got an okay-ish wood line, but I really dislike the fact that his goals are so open. That can be very punishing in a French mirror. That's all gonna come down to knight numbers. The gold mine of Vortix is somewhat exposed as well, and his backup gold mines are really far out. You see, he would have to walk all the way out here if he loses control over this gold mine. They also are all on the same side, so losing control over this part of the map for Vortix would be a disaster. His barriers are on the other side, so that's gonna be all right for him, I guess. Not very safe here, but the key thing is that if Kelazhur is going to focus on pushing the gold, the berries could be safe. Hunts are spread out on the left and the right for Vortix, whereas for Kelazhur, both of his hunts are to the north of his base. So far, we're just seeing a very standard French build over here from both players. Villagers on sheep, and then being sent to gold for a fast feudal with School of Cavalry, and we will see Knight Mirrors. The French mirror here can be pretty punishing, because if you fall behind in terms of knight numbers just a tiny bit, your opponent can easily snowball the game. So every single fight is going to be extremely important, because this is one of those matchups where it could be an extremely snowbally game. Looks like the food is ready for Kelazhur, and so it is for Vortix. Ideally, you want to place your School of Cavalry close to your gold to protect it, but it also depends on where your gold is. If it's at the back, it's not needed, but when your gold is exposed like that, you want to place that School of Cavalry close to it, and that's exactly what we're seeing over here. It will be placed right on the gold mine here. And on the other side, we'll also have Kelazhur's landmark being placed on the gold. He's using 3 villagers to build it, whereas on the other side, Vortix is only building this with 2. This means that Vortix will be able to get a lot more resources while going up, but his feudal age is going to be a little slower than his opponent's. Now, Vortix is currently free on wood, and he's sending more villagers on wood. With the French, you don't need to chop a lot of wood early on, simply because the idea is that your production building will be the School of Cavalry, so you don't need to make a stable or so. You can. In that case, you actually chop a lot more wood, and I feel like what Vortix is doing right now, not mining stone but chopping a lot of wood, makes me feel like he's gonna add the second production building. In a French mirror, that can be an early barracks for spearmen, or that can be a second stable for more knights. Archers are very unlikely in this matchup. Sometimes the French want to open with an archer range alongside the School of Cavalry if they're playing against a civilization that is likely to go heavy on the spearman side of things. So for example, if they play against the Holy Roman Empire, opening archer range alongside the School of Cavalry makes some sense, because your opponent is likely going infantry, and that's probably going to be spearmen, at least some of them, so you will have some archers to pick off the spearmen, and then your knights will deal with the rest. But in this matchup, it is just School of Cavalry for both players into Knight Mirrors. Looks like, as I said, the School of Cavalry will be done a little faster here for Kelazhur. He has added one more villager to build this landmark for a grand total of 4. Whereas on the other side, Vortix is just building this one with 2. Here comes the first knight from our red player, and you see, now that Vortix notices that he's behind in feudal age time, he's gonna send the third villager in here. And with that wood bank, it's very possible we'll see an additional stable. Vortix can afford the stable itself. It's a different question whether or not he can afford to train units on that stable alongside using the School of Cavalry as well, because that's the big deal here. You can have as many production buildings as you want if you don't have the economy to keep them working. Looks like it's a stable coming in, and also blacksmith. Now, that's quite a lot of resources spent on those extra buildings here for Vortix. You see, there's a first knight already coming out for Kelazhur. Vortix is just now finishing his first knight in here. So, here's the deal. The second stable will allow Vortix to catch up in terms of knight numbers and potentially even gain an advantage over his opponent. And on the blacksmith, he doesn't even need to research anything at the beginning, simply because the moment he grabs the blacksmith, he's gonna get the attack upgrade for free, so his knights will have that +1 attack already. Obviously later on he can grab the +1 defense, but building the blacksmith here for him is all about just grabbing that attack upgrade before his opponent does. So you see that the lance damage of these knights is 29, and the lance damage here is 30 for Vortix. It actually matters more when it comes to sword fights, because it's a small buff to the lances, but it's a quite considerable buff to the swords. You see, the knights would have 19 damage with the swords if they don't get the buff after charge for the French, and it would be 20 with the free blacksmith upgrade. Here, you see there is a second stable already coming in for Kelazhur. So he realizes that he's up against a bigger production. He's gonna need to mix in some more knights himself. Chivalry on the way for Vortix to heal his knights, and I would expect Chivalry to come in soon as well for Kelazhur. The two players are pretty much playing identical build orders here. There's apparently no blacksmith for Kelazhur, but that's just a minor difference between the two players' builds. Kelazhur has moved towards the berries on the north of his base, whereas Vortix is moving out for the hunt, which is kind of exposed, so he needs to be careful about this one. He could use the defensive tower here potentially. The towers will not be able to kill all the knights that come into raid. It's more about being able to garrison the villagers inside the tower while your own knights arrive to clean up the enemy. And this is the reason why we're seeing 5 vills here for Vortix. He can garrison all of them to the tower, so he can save all of them while the reinforcements come in to take down the opponent's cavalry. If there is any cavalry from the opponent though, because so far it looks like Kelazhur is just sitting back defending. Meanwhile for Vortix, he's got a couple of knights moving in, might be looking to get a villager kill or so with a charge on the wood line. Kelazhur's reactions are pretty fast here, and eventually he is going to force Vortix back. Vortix will save that knight, pretty important because now he can heal it up with the Chivalry, so the town center wasn't able to finish that knight for the time being. Vortix has been pretty active with his scout. You see, he's looking at the gold mines over here. He was looking at the hunt previously. So he's really looking to see if Kelazhur is moving out towards the resources, trying to find a place where he can raid. Looks like Kelazhur is also moving in with his scout to check up on his opponent. This scout could easily get himself killed, though. There is a couple of knights coming from the left and some from the right, so Kelazhur will have to withdraw, and indeed he does just that. Currently, I see about 6 knights, I believe, for our red player. Vortix is up to 7, but knight number is still pretty close. 42 population for Vortix. Kelazhur is at 40, with 33 villas for him, and 34 for his opponent. So very, very close matchup here so far. And there's a barracks being mixed in here by Vortix. So this is where Kelazhur will need something to react to this one. It can be his own barracks and just spearman knights for both players, as Vortix loses his scout to the knights of the opponent. The alternative is that Kelazhur can mix in archers to try and pick off the spearmen. So those are the two options that Kelazhur has right now, but pure knights won't work against knight and spearmen anymore. You see hardened spearmen immediately coming in for Vortix. He stopped making knights. It looks like he's having some gold issues here. You see, he only has 100 gold in the bank. This is what I was talking about when I said that you can have 2 production buildings, but if you can't make them work, it's not gonna matter. Still, I feel like Vortix is not really in trouble right now military-wise, so he's gonna get away with this one without problems. And he now has access to the berries as well, alongside the hunt. Kelazhur is also moving towards his hunt, playing very, very defensive here with the French. You see, he's just chilling out here with the knights, protecting his hunt. But that buys time for Vortix to start mixing in spearmen. And that's where it's starting to get dangerous for Kelazhur. Looks like 9 knights will loop around and try to hit the villagers on the hunt. Potentially there's 7 here for Kelazhur, so he should be able to keep away his opponents. And Kelazhur may have even spotted those knights coming in with his scout. He's gonna send in a couple more knights. And oh, look at that. That was such a beautiful move. He has been hiding those knights in that stealth forest and he jumped on the knights of Vortix. I'm like 90% sure that this scout spotted the knights coming forward. So Kelazhur was like, okay, it's time for a surprise attack. Now, Vortix is retreating and he's slowly getting his knights healed up. So Kelazhur might not be able to kill a single knight here after all, but the idea was very, very nice, trying to lure those knights into a trap, and he did just that. Here come the spearmen, however. Only 3 of them in the party, but they do have the attack upgrade. The moment Kelazhur sees the spearmen, he is going to withdraw from this combat. Looks like he still has no answer to those spears, aside from the fact that he's just going mass knights. And I think he is about to spot that tower out there. He should know that his opponent is on that hunt, so he can sort of force Vortix to take a fight soon if he's just trying to harass those villagers on the hunt. Currently, those villagers are idle for Vortix, but at least they are not dead, so that's the positive that you get from that tower. You see, Kelazhur is really thinking about diving in on those berries, but the moment he sees the spears, he thinks twice and he will just retreat. I think he still has to be satisfied with the fact that he's sort of idling those villagers on the hunt for a long time, so he managed to carve out a tiny bit of an eco lead thanks to that. In terms of resource income, Kelazhur's food income is much better, slightly better wood income for Vortix. Gold is rather close, slightly in the favor of Vortix. Looks like Kelazhur is just going full knights here. He feels like brute force knights is the way to go, and it really depends on how many spears Vortix can mass. Because you need about 2 spearmen to match up against 1 knight in Feudal Age, so currently we're looking at about 12 knights, 6 spearmen against a whopping 18 knights. I feel like I like that army a little bit better for Kelazhur. He's coming in here once again on the hunt, and I wonder if he's just trying to lure away the cavalry of the opponent and wants to charge in from the other side. That's exactly the plan. He tried to lure the army of Vortix to the right and tries to hit the berries with the knights. He's also going to charge in on those spears. That's actually a pretty good one, because it's going to do a lot of damage on the spears. We'll pretty much pick off 1 or 2 of them for free. There was, I think, 1 or 2 knights picked off by Vortix, so it wasn't perfect for Kelazhur. But he's the one applying pressure to the opponent, which means that currently Kelazhur's got an untouched economy, something that shouldn't be overlooked. He hasn't gotten the scout hunting upgrade, neither did Vortix, whose hunters are now idle. So still, I believe that the economy efficiency is actually much, much better here for our red player. And there is just not enough spearmen for Vortix to really swing this in the favor of him. Speaking of spearmen, though, here come the reinforcements, and now adding something that deals with spearmen starts to become urgent, I believe, for Kelazhur. Because as much as I like his full knight army, I feel like that's enough spearmen to make, what should I say here? To make a difference? Is that even the appropriate term here? Because I think it's an understatement. Those spearmen could be the clutch units in this fight. There's a lot of knights here, I count 22, whereas on the other side, for Vortix, it's like 14. Quite a lot of spearmen though, and the French knights also get a bonus attack after charging in. So you can jump on those spears if you feel like it, and I think that Kelazhur has enough to win this fight. He has been taking some hits on his knights from the spearmen, but he just had better knight numbers as it is. Looking at the upgrades, now he also has the blacksmith, so the attack upgrade is also in, and Kelazhur also has an easier time reinforcing this battle as it's closer to his base. The problem that he has, though, is that he's unprepared to fight a lot more spearmen here, and I feel like a second barracks could be very, very helpful here for Vortix. Indeed, he already has a second one, so that he can flood out spearmen a little faster. What will Kelazhur do now? He needs something against those spears, but he's just only making knights. At some point, he's gonna get overrun by spearmen. His opponent is able to heal up knights, many of which are quite heavily damaged. Looks like Kelazhur will launch a counterattack, if he finds these villagers here, that can help immensely for him. He needs to be able to utilize his mobility here with the knights, because his opponent is so heavy on the spearman. Oh, looks like the knights are coming in here. They actually tried to attack that landmark, but I think it was just because Kelazhur was probably attack moving in here, and he just had his knights automatically attack the landmark. Meanwhile, though, oh boy, Vortix is coming in, and that's a lot of dead villagers for Kelazhur. Might be a game-deciding type of a fight here. If it isn't even a fight, it's just a slaughter. Kelazhur, he lost track of those knights for a brief moment, and he's gonna pay the price. Because now those knights will jump on the villagers, and that's just so many dead bodies. Now you could ask, how did Vortix know that Kelazhur is there? He probably didn't even know for sure, but he can check it out because it's a hunt. And you see that the players are moving out to the hunt in most cases, so he can check it out and see if there's any villagers. He must have been really happy to see that there was like 20 villagers completely unprotected there. And on the other side, you see Kelazhur try to do the same thing, but the difference is that Vortix is a lot of spearmen defending, a tower you can jump into, and now that all those villagers have been slain, Vortix is sitting at a convenient 54 villagers, whereas Kelazhur is at 37. Massive losses here for him. It's just not something that he can survive, I feel like, in such a punishing Mirror Civilization matchup. Especially considering that his opponent's army is already better, so Spearmen and Knights will just beat the standard full Knights play from Kelazhur eventually. Especially if Kelazhur's eco is much weaker. Looks like Kelazhur is trying to sandwich this force in between two of his armies. Here you see there is a group of Knights coming from the left, one from the right. Could be a beautiful sandwich here. Indeed, here he comes. He's charging in from two sides. That's an excellent fight for Kelazhur. These are the type of fights he needs to somehow crawl back in this game. It's still gonna be insanely difficult, but this is exactly the type of fight he needs. I love how he's trying to use those two knights to block the movement of the opponent. But looks like most of the knights will escape here for Vortix, who's got a ridiculously high amount of spearmen now, I believe. So he could really start moving up with those. Meanwhile, Kelazhur has went out for the berries on the left side. Neither of the players are actually close to Castle Age, so we're still sitting in Feudal Age, just seeing those knights poking away at each other. But at this point, Vortix doesn't need to stress this one that much. He knows he's ahead, he knows how many villagers he killed, so he knows exactly that from this point on, if he just sits back and expands his eco, it is Kelazhur that will have to make a move to try and compensate for those losses. Speaking of Kelazhur, he's moving in, and I feel like the real thing that Kelazhur could do to come back is a successful raid over here. If that works out, that could be pretty massive. Looks like the knights will meet on the battlefield though. Kelazhur is able to charge in and Vortix wasn't, so that's quite a lot of knights going down here from our blue player. The type of fight that Kelazhur needed once again. So far when it comes to KD, 38 kills for Vortix, 23 only for Kelazhur. But most of that comes from villagers. So that 15 difference, I think 10 of them are villagers for Vortix. So in terms of army killed, it's rather even. Kelazhur actually lost a building as well. I think that was maybe a tower foundation over here. I'm not so sure. Looks like Kelazhur is floating quite a lot of gold right now. He managed to avoid the army of the opponent over here using the stealth forest. We have a big knight group coming in as well from Vortix, pushing the left side. That's a lot of spearmen here for Vortix, so this is not a fight that Kelazhur wants to take. Is he gonna do that? That's actually a mistake, I believe, even after charging in. It's just not a type of fight that you want to take when you're already behind in terms of villagers, because replenishing those knights will be insanely painful, and that is a lot of spearmen. That's 29 spears with the attack upgrade. That was overly ambitious here from Kelazhur. I feel like he knows that he needs to do something. It's just running into spearmen with your knights is not the best thing you can do over here, and you see, he's starting to wall himself. I feel like he's realizing that, okay, I need a long game here. A short game, I'm just gonna lose it, because right now I'm behind. My only chance is that this game goes long, and I will have time to equal things out. But you see, Vortix is splitting up his forces. Some of the knights will jump on the gold mine, slaying even more villagers, and that's just way too much to handle. It's 18 knights and 31 spearmen versus Kelazhur's 13 knights over here. Just simply not enough here for Kelazhur anymore. He will be forced off from his gold. potentially his hunt as well, and so many villagers will go down that this probably will warrant a GG here from our red player. Indeed, there is the GG code. Vortix takes game number 1 over here. Since this is a recorded game, I won't be able to show you the stats over here after the game, unfortunately, but I feel like you have seen everything that you need to see. The real difference maker was 2 things. A, Spearman added, which just started to swing the battles in the favor of Vortix, and B, it was that massive raid that just slain 15 villagers or so from Kelazhur, and that was basically it. So, up 1 game is Vortix, which means that he can no longer use his French. His opponent will have to know that. And on the other side, Kelazhur can still use his French. It looks like we will have a French civilization pick here for Kelazhur. Vortix will stick with another popular civilization pick, I must say. He's going Mongols. Now, Mongols has a much steeper learning curve than French do, but people seem to like it. It's important to note that the Mongol town center rushing is banned from the tournament because it's really unenjoyable for both the players and the viewers after seeing 100 games of that. As you see the town center coming up for Vortix on the north. The map we are playing is Lipany. We will have on the north the Vortix as blue Mongols, and to the south it is going to be Kelazhur as the red French. So Mongols versus French. This is one of those matchups where the Mongols have a lot of options. First thing that they can do is go for early scouts, because scouts are cheap, and just try to set the gold mine of the opponent on fire. For every building that you set on fire with the Mongols, the Mongol player will get 50 gold and 50 food. They can train 2 scouts very early on with an early stable. And you can just force your opponent off from gold. That's the game plan with the Mongols against the French. You just gotta force them off from gold. And if you look at how the TC spawned for Kelazhur, that gold mine is very, very problematic for him. You see, it's so far away from the range of the town center. Any kind of aggression in Dark Age from Vortix here could force off Kelazhur from gold. And without gold, there is no knights. Without knights, there is no problems. That's basically the game plan here for Vortix. He has already finished up the Uvu right now, and he's already scouting his opponent quite actively, looking at his vision real quick. He actually, I think, yeah, he must have spotted those gold mines. We don't see that because of a spectator bug, but anyways, you see that he sees the bottom of those, so he knows about those gold mines. Both gold mines are on the same side as well for Kelazhur, so losing control over this side is an extremely big problem here. Looks like it's just going to be a Gur coming in for Vortix to mine gold. Now, if he's mining gold right at the beginning, it means that he wants to go for a fast feudal and potentially go for Mangadai. So, in most cases, or at least quite often, Mongols go for some sort of Dark Age aggression. Horsemen, scouts potentially, especially against French, trying to deny that gold. And in that case, they delay adding gold miners because they'll have a quite late feudal age. This time around, it very much seems like Vortix is just playing standard fast feudal. Whereas on the other side, we're gonna have the good old-fashioned fast feudal into School of Cavalry build from Kelazhur. Now, if he's going full knights, then the Mangadai can actually perform pretty well against that. Mangadai can run away while shooting, and they have a pretty decent damage output against knights as well. I did mention in the previous matchup, the French Mirror, that sometimes the French add archers, like foot archers, to their army composition early. This is one of those matchups, I believe. Because adding a couple of foot archers allows you to pick off the Mangadai, because you have higher range than them. And that is an excellent support unit to your knights. So I feel like, against Mongols, the French can really justify adding an archer range. Looks like Kelazhur just wants to go for full knights though, because he won't have the wood for an archer range. Vortix about to click up the feudal age. His landmark will be the Deer Stones, which will provide the Yum Speed era for the Mongol player. The Yum Speed aura is a pretty big thing. This is gonna buff the movement speed of all of your units, including your villagers as well, but the big thing is military units. It makes it so much easier to micro your archers, potentially micro your spearmen, especially if you combine that with the Khan's movement arrow. The Khan right now is on the right side. He actually collected quite a lot of sheep over here, so that's going to be pretty helpful for Vortix. The School of Cavalry almost finished here. Vortix will see that, but I think it's very predictable, so he doesn't need to stress about what his opponent is going to do. 95% of the times, the French open with School of Cavalry and Knights. The question is what Vortix is up to, because I feel like the best thing he can do is just go straight Mangudai against the full Knights play. The Mangudai will be able to beat the Knights if you have good micro, and every single Knight that gets picked off is just going to be extremely costly for our red player. Here comes the first Royal Knight. Feudal Age is halfway in, and it looks like it's a barracks. In that case, it's a completely different scenario. You see that the Gur from the gold mine is also being moved, so no more gold will be mined. Forget the Mangudai, this is going to be full trash. One of the things that Mongols can also do, just go full spearmen archers. And it works, because they got the yum speed for their movement, and also they can train units in batches of 2, which means that they can really flood the map with infantry and archers early on. You see, while we're going up the feudal age, you already have 2 spearmen coming out. It just helps so much against those knights that you can double train the spearmen. You can get a decent amount of spears out quite rapidly. Still no feudal age here for Vortix, though the first knight is about to arrive. Once that Deerstone's landmark goes up, the spearmen will get a speed boost over here, so you can react really fast to those knights with those fast-moving spearmen. You can just run from one end of your base to the other end. In fact, I think with the yum speed plus the Khan's movement arrow, the spearmen actually outrun the knights, so it's such a big speed boost. You see, they have 1.25 speed by default, and once the Deerstone goes up, it's going to be 1.44. For reference, the knights have 1.62, so with the Khan's signal arrow, you would be up against that. I think it's like 1.7 with the signal arrow. No hardened upgrade just yet for Vortix. In fact, he can afford it. That's a bit of a problem, I would say, because that hardened upgrade is quite crucial. Looks like a second TC will be built here. He was so heavy on wood, I haven't even noticed. He's going for a second town center. Now, Mongols, their town centers don't cost stone. Instead, it costs a lot more wood. I think it's 900 wood to make an extra town center. Indeed it is. So it's just gonna be a full boom here from Vortix and go spearman defense. Interesting idea, and I kinda like it. If you think about it, those spearmen with the yum speed, they can just get to the other side of the base very, very easily. So your reactions with your spears are pretty fast, and you will just outboom your opponent, because your opponent is going for knights, and the French player, if he's going for this 1TC School of Cavalry game, he just needs to do damage with those knights. Now, I think the appropriate response from the French player here seeing this is to try and add his own second town center. Archers can work to try and pick off the spearmen. The problem is that even if you somehow pick off the spearmen, there is still town centers protecting key parts of the economy. So I really feel like the problem here is that your archers and knights won't be able to accomplish much against a lot of spearmen and town centers. Looks like an archer range will be built here, second range as well. This might be the time for Mangudai though, because you see that the Gur is being moved to the gold mine. This archer range will probably be moved after finished into the influence radius of the Ovu. Here come the knight charge, and that's, I think, 2 or 3 dead bodies. A little bit of a slow reaction here from Vortix. Indeed, 3 villagers go down to the knights. That's the type of fight that Kelazhur needs. I still think that Kelazhur will need to expand his economy a little bit more rapidly, so he will need a second town center. But so far, he's not working towards that. He's just gonna play 1 TC for now. Trying to deny those berries. That's another 2 villagers that gets picked off on the berries. Very nice from Kelazhur. Look at this. His scout is giving him vision. That's what he's doing. The scout is chilling here, and it's telling Kelazhur when to charge on the berries. Such a good use of that scout over there. Looks like it can't pop the Falcon, but not the buff upgrade. So what the Falcon does here for Vortix is that it gives him vision around this area for some time, even without the Khan being there. So you see, Vortix, he's gonna have vision around this area, including vision into the stealth forest. even though he doesn't have a lot of units nearby. Looks like he's gonna spot the scout on the back. I'm fairly certain that Kelazhur was looking at the hunt over here, seeing if that if the opponent is right there. Blacksmith coming in for Kelazhur, that's gonna give him the extra melee attack on the knights immediately. Currently, Vortix is at 33 villagers and Kelazhur is at 35. So, with all those villagers being lost here, for Vortix, the eco is actually better for Kelazhur right now. Looks like it's just going to be full foot archers. So the gold mining is only there for the upgrades on the blacksmith, I believe. For Vortix, that's the only reason why you would mine gold if you're going for spears and archers. Spear and archer is a pretty popular composition with Mongol, simply because it's very easy to mass a big horde of them, and you can just try to snowball the game with a lot of spears and archers, especially if you get the technology on the blacksmith that allows you to build siege weapons with your infantry. You can just finish off a game pretty fast in Feudal Age. Looks like Kelazhur's resource bank is growing quite nicely, so it's possible he will try to go to Castle Age, which would be a decent idea, I would say. With better units, like Veteran Royal Knights and potentially Veteran Archers, he should be able to defeat whatever Vortix has on the field right now. Nice charging in here, getting some hits on the Spearman. The concept here is that it doesn't matter that you take damage on your Knights because they will heal automatically. You just want to kill a Spearman. Dive in, kill 2 or 3 Spearmen, and then disengage and heal up your Knights. So your opponent would lose 2 units and you lose none. That's the concept over here for Vortix. And Kelazhur. Kelazhur is actually very, very low on gold. That's because he keeps adding more Knights. But now that's a fairly sizable force of archers and spearmen. You see, these guys, with the yum speed and the speed boost, they have 1.91 speed. Look at them being so fast! They just chase down everything that Kelazhur has. And that's such a good fight right now for Vortix. He's got the archer numbers advantage and he can pick off so many archers from the opponent. A raid coming in from the north by Kelazhur, trying to pick off a couple of vills. Will not get a single vill kill here, I believe. The villagers will be able to jump back into the DC. And now, this is telling Vortix that, hey, Kelazhur is at my base, might as well push his, and that's gonna be a couple of villagers dead from Kelazhur. Meanwhile, on the other side, we're finally gonna get a couple of kills by those knights, but so far, Vortix has done an exceptional job containing the damage, and you see, with more and more spearmen coming in, it's gonna be extremely difficult for Kelazhur to do damage. Villager count is 40 for Kelazhur, and Vortix has 46, but Vortix has 34 army, whereas Kelazhur's one is only 19 strong. Of course, some of them are high-value units like knights, but still, I feel like I'm starting to be more and more comfortable with the position of Vortix. Kelazhur is floating a lot of food, by the way, and also super heavy on wood here. If he's this heavy on food and wood, might as well go for a second archer range here. Here come the knights once again by Kelazhur. Remember that he's playing one town center behind this one the whole time, whereas on the other side Vortix is on 2, so Vortix should have a pretty considerable villager lead by now. It's 43 versus 51 indeed. But now the knights charge in, and there is still not a lot of things that Vortix can do against those knights, aside from adding his spearmen. He's got a decent force of spearmen right now, but I don't think that he could win a straight-up battle against Kelazhur, who decides to go for a ram here. I'm not so sure about this one. The thing with that ram is that while it's great at absorbing damage, and even if it's not taking out buildings, it could be good to just tank up arrow fire from the opponent, you always need some sort of escort to the rams, something that protects them from villagers killing it. And I don't think that Kelazhur's escort is big enough here. He's got 9 knights, 17 archers against, what's this? 20 spearmen, 22 archers, and also a con that could buff the attack rate of those units in here. I'm really unconvinced about this push here for Kelazhur, simply because I don't think that his army is big enough to escort that ram. And you see, if Kelazhur wants to win this fight, he needs to snipe down that con at the beginning. The con did pop the attack arrow, I believe. So here come the spearman. You see that ram is being forced back. This is what I was talking about. It might be the movement speed arrow, actually, because those units were quite fast, although it's very hard to tell if it's the movement speed arrow or just the yum speed arrow. But anyways, the Spearmen are able to get some nice hits on the Knights. The Knights mostly go down here from Kelazhur, and I feel like despite the fact that the Khan is gonna get taken down, that army from Kelazhur gets cleaned up. He knows exactly he's up against 2 town centers, so he knows exactly his economy is gonna be weaker, and with his entire army gone, Kelazhur calls it, and we will have Vortix moving into the decider round. This was the round before the deciders here, so Vortix moves in there. Let me add that score real quick. He played very, very convincing. Kelazhur also played well, but I just feel like some small details weren't polished for him, and those were difference makers. Because in the first game, it was French Mirror, any kind of mistake can make you lose a game. Whereas on the other side here, I feel like he was just surprised about the 2TC build of the Mongols, which is somewhat unconventional, and I myself was a little surprised about that. He probably wasn't expecting it, and he sort of just got stuck here with his push. He never really was able to raid, and at the end of the day, his opponent just outboomed him, and I think Vortix has shown how you can use Mongols as a very, very good defensive civilization, use the mobility provided by the Yum Speed network, and then just go for a large mass of spearmen and archers to defend against the numbers of Kelazhur. With that, Vortix moves into the decider round.